Part dari sini Kokang Gaming kita akan ngobrol soal Assassin's Creed Black Flag Racing. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Richard Knight. I'm the game director for Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced with Ubisoft Singapore.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to start with the toughest question first. I think Black Flag Racing is one of the worst kept secret game in the history. I mean, for the past 2 years, everyone talking about the game before you even confirm it. Is there any, mental damage to the team because of the situation? Is there any, attempt to find where the leak came and everything?
I mean, I'm sure there is, beyond my knowledge, but what I would say is, leaks are not great. They don't help the team, but most of the time we're all human too, and we read Reddit and we're like, that's not right, or that's not the way it is. So I mean, we see those things, but ultimately we just focus on making the game. So these games take years to make. We've been working on Black Flag Resynced for 3 years now.
3 years.
Yeah. So no matter what happens, we're always kind of on this road to the finish.
So the next question is, most of the Assassin's Creed fans right now are divided into two groups: a lot of actions and a lot of RPGs. But you guys decided to, you have a lot of chance to make Racing more different than the original, but you decided to stick with the action instead of RPGs. Although from the data, like Valhalla is like one of the most played, or even like bring more revenue to Ubisoft. How do you decided that we are going to stick with the action instead of changing it to the RPGs?
Yeah, I wish I had the shirt that said not an RPG. No, but what we knew from the beginning is that people love Black Flag because they played the original Black Flag. There's this nostalgia there, and so we knew early on that for us, authenticity is important. We're not here to tell a new story with Black Flag. We're here to tell Edward's story, the original story of Black Flag. And you can't do that by completely changing how the game works, right? So even though we are a modern game, we are a modern remake, and we modernize some things, it was very important for us from the beginning that no, we have to be that same action experience, because it's very true to Edward's character. Like, he's always this kind of he's a little bit unpolished. He stumbles a bit. He can be quick and brutal. He's more of a Indiana Jones type, and it shows in the game. Right, the game is always, let's drive forward. Let's get to the next quest. Let's move the story forward. And so yes, that kind of reflects well on the action gameplay. So we're going to stick true to that.
Is there any at the phase of development that you guys is experimenting with the RPG aspect? No, it's all action from the start.
It's always, we always knew, like, keep the original experience as much as possible, but modernize it where, it's either old or it doesn't work, quality of life features and things to kind of make it feel like the game that was being built just today. That was very important for us, but you don't want to sacrifice the original spirit. And we always call it the spirit or the flavor of the original. Like, you need to have that flavor when you play it, otherwise it's not really Black Flag anymore, is it?
No, I would say the overall Assassin's Creed team are moving away from the modern aspect. The Shadows doesn't have the modern aspect, and then the Racing decided to erase everything from the modern story. It's a universal move from modern story from Assassin's Creed, or just per game decision.
So we knew when we started planning Black Flag Resynced that we couldn't tell the original modern day anymore. So that game still exists. That Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is still canon. It's still the 4th game. You can still buy it today. That still happened. But this game is not that game. This game is the latest Assassin's Creed. It's the game after Shadows. So we knew we had two goals. One of them is we want to continue telling the sort of the subtle story that Assassin's Creed Shadows is telling with their riffs. And we also wanted to have something for our modern day experience that didn't feel like you were taking a break from Black Flag and doing something else for 2 hours. So instead, what we came up with are these riffs, these new riffs that you have to go and find. So if you don't go and look for them, you can just have Edward's experience, and that's okay. But if you go and find them, you'll discover these kind of what if tales, like what if Edward had made this different choice? What if one of his friends had made this other choice? So that way, it kind of, even though you're doing this new different thing, it still connects back to the Black Flag game that you're already playing.
Okay, is it like supported by a canon lore that why the modern part being erased from the Racing?
Well, that's the thing. It's not erased. So both games are still canon.
Okay.
So, you can come up with your own headcanon about how this happens, but just imagine that the person who played Black Flag AC4, that still happened. And today, in today's Animus, somebody else is playing it and getting a different experience.
Why Black Flag first? You got Assassin's Creed 1, A0, and then 3, and then why Black Flag first to remake?
So if you strip out the number, like we did, it's Black Flag Resynced, right? Just forget the number for a second. You've got Edward, who's this really memorable character that everybody loves, who's kind of, a lovable rogue. He's not even sure about this assassin thing. He throws away the first hidden blade he gets. So as a player, you kind of identify with him because you're also like, I don't know what any of this assassin stuff is, and then you over the game you learn. Then you've got this great setting in the Caribbean. Everybody wants to take a vacation there. You've got these two different kinds of gameplay. You've got the iconic naval ship battles, and then you've still got all the brand defining, stealth and parkour and assassinations. So you put all this together, and it's like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. And then you go, okay, so that game is 13 years old. What happens if we do that today? It allows us to dream a little bit, to go, okay, if we built that same game today, what would be different? What would be better or improve, right? So, some of it's simple things like, there's a button for crouching now, which wasn't very obvious back then, but now, it just seems pretty obvious. The seamless open world where you don't have loading screens to go into Havana. There's some of those things are just very simple, but, it allowed us to dream more. And then we looked at stuff like the combat system and other things. So overall, what I'm saying is that we saw this great place, this great character, this great gameplay, and it was just old enough that it allowed us to think about how we would modernize it today. So if you just take it on its face like that, it's kind of the perfect one to do. And on top of that, also with Ubisoft Singapore, who's worked on the original Black Flag all the way back to AC2. So we have all this history of the brand, but we also have the background in water tech and naval gameplay and stuff. So when you put this all together, it actually kind of felt like the perfect fit. So, I can't speak about, other ACs, but just for now, this seemed like the best way forward.
You guys also responsible for Skull and Bones, right? Ubisoft Singapore?
Yes.
Do any knowledge from development from that game bring into the Resynced?
Well, what I would say is that first and foremost, all of our knowledge comes from working on the brand, working on every single AC since 2, right?
Okay.
So, in fact, the most of what we bring is actually from the new Anvil engine, and even I worked on Assassin's Creed Shadows, right? So there's a lot we learned and brought forward there. One of the beauties of the Anvil team is that they are kind of cross-project, and they built all this cool technology that helps out multiple games, including Skull and Bones and Shadows and other games. So there's always some information that goes around the different projects. But I'd say for sure our influences are more on the AC side and Shadows.
What is the toughest part of remaking Black Flag?
The toughest part is that we have to kind of become. It's actually kind of the coolest part. Actually, it's tough, but it's cool.
Okay.
So it's that we have to become historians, right? We have to understand this game from 13 years ago. We have to understand kind of the state of the latest technology, so the Anvil engine, so games like Shadows, Mirage, that kind of thing. And then we have to look at all of our features and go, okay, there's some things that carry over very well, like the naval gameplay. Okay, we need to redo it, but it works well today. It's just as well back then. There's things we have to redo from scratch, like the combat system. It's like, okay, well, the old system, it doesn't really work for us. It's good for its time, but it doesn't really work for us. But we also don't want, shadow system exactly. We want something new. And then the historian part is everything in between. How does a rope dart work? How does a blow dart work? How does a smoke bomb work? There's many games across, Assassin's Creed, and we can look at, okay, well, this game did this one better, and this game did this one better. And so we go, okay, well, maybe we should use some of that, maybe we should use some of this. So we have to kind of understand how all of the games across that time period worked to best understand what's the best things for Black Flag in this new Resynced version. So I say it's the hardest, but it's also kind of the most rewarding because there's a whole lot of things. The game is much bigger than I ever remembered. There's so many different systems. But then when we figure out something, okay, this is cool. Now this works properly. It just feels very rewarding. Like we're kind of resurrecting the spirit of an old game.
Okay, I think this is going to be my last question. Is there any message for Black Flag fans in Indonesia?
What I would say is thank you so much for playing the original. I really hope you all get a chance to play the game on July 9th. This team here, both here in Ubisoft Singapore and sort of Ubisoft worldwide, have been working incredibly hard for the last 3 years to make this game. And again, we really hope that you can recognize the spirit. Even though some things will change and some systems are modernized, but we really hope you feel that spirit of Edward and Black Flag.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, itu adalah wawancara gue sama game director Assassin's Creed Black Flag Racing. Semoga bisa dapat insight yang banyak soal apa yang berusaha mereka tawarin. Terutama ya kita ngobrol soal isu-isu sensitif juga, misalnya kayak leak dan juga soal konsep mereka, apa yang paling susah ketika ngubah game yang udah umurnya tua ini ke era modern. Nah sebenarnya gue juga sempat ngajuin pertanyaan ke audio director dan juga ke kayak technical directornya mereka di Singapura juga, cuman sesinya nggak bisa di-record. Jadi gue tambahin aja. Pertanyaan gue ke audio directornya adalah, kan kita tahu kalau di Skull and Bones itu banyak banget Shanties atau kita tahu lah kayak nyanyian-nyanyian keren mereka pas lagi berlayar, dan itu banyak yang bahasa Indonesia. Terus gue tanya ke audio director mereka, apakah di sesi remake yang kali ini kita bisa expect Shanties baru yang pakai bahasa Indonesia? Sayangnya jawabannya berita buruk, jadi mereka bilang tidak ada Shanties baru yang pakai bahasa Indonesia, tapi ada satu Shanties khusus buat ngobrolin kehidupan maritim atau mungkin perompak di era itu yang berhubungan sama region kita. Jadi nggak lagi spesifik bahasa Indonesia, tapi sekarang ada di Asia Tenggara gitu. Ada si Shanties satu khusus buat ngobrolin situasi maritim di region kita gitu. Nah untuk yang sesi technical gue tanya, kan sekarang si Ubisoft itu udah mulai nge-push ray tracing sebagai pondasi visual mereka gitu. Jadi beda sama kayak game modern lain di mana ray tracing bisa dimatiin. Sekarang even di konsol PS5 sekalipun ray tracing yang global illumination yang bikin shadows keren banget itu juga sekarang jadi sesuatu yang standar untuk engine-nya Unfiltered barunya Ubisoft gitu. Nah gue tanya, apakah tidak pernah ada kekhawatiran bahwa situasi ini tuh bikin gamer justru cemas karena performa mesin mereka either di konsol atau di PC malah bisa compromise gitu, alias malah bikin berat gamenya gitu. Dua technical directornya gue lupa namanya siapa, tapi mereka bilang kalau si Ubisoft sekarang ada di posisi yang sangat optimis kalau mereka punya Unreal Engine itu dengan semua teknologi ray tracing-nya, khususnya yang dijalankan secara software kayak di konsol gitu yang tidak butuh kartu grafis RTX-nya NVIDIA misalnya, itu bisa jalan dengan sangat optimal tanpa mempengaruhi performa sama sekali. Jadi walaupun misalnya kayak di PS5 kasus shadows ray tracing yang global illumination-nya tidak bisa dimatiin, tapi mereka bisa bilang kalau ya contoh bukti aja kalau misalnya di shadows tuh ya tidak ada pengaruh banyak soal performa, sementara visualnya tetap cakep gitu. Jadi mereka juga nge-push hal yang sama di Assassin's Creed Black Flag Racing ini, dan mereka optimis terlepas kalau ray tracing mereka jadi sebagai fitur visual utama, mereka yakin kalau tidak akan ada pukulan yang signifikan untuk forma di mesin manapun gitu. Jadi mereka cukup optimis untuk itu. Dan so far kayaknya kalau misalnya lihat dari video gameplay yang gue masukin dalam sesi interview ini sampai akhir ini, ya kayaknya kita bisa pegang omongannya dia lah kalau memang begitu adanya gitu. Oke guys, thank you untuk video ini. Semoga dapat insight yang jelas soal Assassin's Creed Black Flag Racing. Game ini bakal keluar tanggal 9 Juli 2026 ntar buat PS5, Xbox Series dan PC gitu. Jadi ya gue lumayan excited. Semoga memang terbayar manis. Gitu aja sih. Thank you, bye, dadah.